Hey guys, just wanted to post my homework help video for the chapter 3 quiz that we're taking, and this is specifically problem number 7, where we need to adjust the journal based on the new adjusted totals that we have for these. So there's 7 entries that you need to do to get it done. Otherwise known as 7 or A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And I'll walk you through how to do it and where to go from there. So something that tripped me up at the start was kind of what to do for the revenues. And I realized that it's asking just for A. So because there was no change in the adjustments for the commission's revenue, there is no need to enter it again into the journal. So for this first one, for A, we see that the unadjusted was at 24,000 and the adjusted was 30,600. So originally I thought, okay, well, I would just put in the new number. But what you actually need to do is you actually take the adjusted amount and you subtract it by the unadjusted, and that's where you'll get your how much you adjusted the general journal by. And so what we do obviously is we'll go and we'll put that in here. And so the first thing that you need to put is you need to debit an account. And so that first one is going to be account receivable. Now the reason why is because this is revenue that has been taken in but hasn't been paid necessarily towards cash. So for the month, they're getting, and that difference is going to be 6,600. So they're getting 6,600, but because it hasn't been billed or they haven't received the cash yet, it goes into their accounts receivable. And then for the credit account, they're going to be doing service revenue. And so that is because they're still in that month, they need to record it. But once they do get that cash, what they'll do is they will just adjust the accounts receivable and then add in the cash. So that way they can still log or entry journal the fact that they did get service revenue and it was just adjusted $6,600. So that is the first one for problem A. For B, there's obviously a $1,650, so a $1,650 adjustment. So for this one, it's a depreciation expense. And so that one is pretty self-explanatory. For the debit, we know that expenses are always debited to increase it. So the depreciation expense, and then for computers is going to be $1,650. And then because it is a accumulated depreciation, is kind of a contra account, there's going to be two sides of the equation. So that we know is going to be accumulated depreciation, and that is going to be, I guess you can include computers in here as well. So that also will include that $1,650 for the credit account. So for that one, pretty simple. Once you see that depreciation expense, it's going to be debited, and then because it's I spelled accumulated wrong, but the accumulated depreciation, it's a contra account, so both sides of the equation, or both sides of the debit and the credit, are involved in that. So kind of self-explanatory, but then the same thing goes for the depreciation expense for office furniture. The adjusted amount is now $1,925, so originally was 0. So we'll basically put in the same thing, depreciation expense, and because it is an expense, it's going to be debited, sorry. So office furniture, and like I said, 1,925 was the adjusted, and then same thing for the accumulated depreciation. That one will go to the credit side, and it'll be 1,925. So for 4, now that is going to be the salaries expense. This one was a little bit confusing, but after doing a little bit more research, I kind of have a better understanding of it. So We see originally it had 12,500, and then now it's adjusted to 15,195. So like I said before, you have to subtract the adjusted amount from the unadjusted, and what you're going to get is 2,695. So first thing is to figure out what you need to debit first. And so your salaries expense is going to be that debit. So obviously to increase the salaries expense, you need to debit it. And so it's going to be $26.95. Now the question that I had was what I needed to credit, because I thought that it needed to cancel out or vice versa. But after doing some research, I saw that the company still needs to pay out that $26.95, but they haven't paid it out necessarily. And so what they do is they go and they put it on the salaries payable. And even though that's increasing it, so it's $26.95, eventually once that gets paid, that salaries expense is still recorded as $26.95. But then once cash is paid to the salary or to the workers for their salary, that salaries payable account now goes down to zero because it's decreasing. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. But because it's for the month, they need to make sure that expense is recorded into the journal. That's why it's a salaries payable. So debit for expenses and then credits for payable to increase it. So the next thing is insurance expense. So kind of the same thing as well. The insurance expense is going to be credited debited, because expenses are always debited to increase it. So you can see that the adjusted was now $1,430, so $1,430. And then for the credit, we need to kind of figure out what it's taking. So for the insurance expense, it's $1,430. The other one that we want to do is we want to credit the prepaid insurance. So what that is doing is our prepaid insurance is actually an asset account. So when we increase the expense, we have to that actually decreases our equity, and so that will then on the accounting equation decrease our prepaid insurance, because like I said, prepaid insurance is an asset account. You're paying for it generally as the time goes on. Once months go down the road, that asset account is slowly going down just because of the way it's recorded as far as the insurance expense. Hopefully that makes some sense. But yeah, like I said, for insurance expenses for the adjusted, you would then put $1,430, like I said right here, and then you would actually decrease the prepaid insurance or credit it, so it's $1,430. So for number 6, it's office supplies expense. So this one, obviously, you'll put office supplies expense, and you will look at the difference. So originally there was 0, but now it's 528. So obviously the difference is 528. You're still going to debit it, for the expenses. And then actually what we'll do, because those expenses decrease the equity, thus kind of decreasing the accounting equation in total, what you're actually doing is you're decreasing your office supplies just in general. So the office supplies are an asset account as well. So as you're decreasing that equity, you're going to be decreasing the office supplies. And by doing that, you're going to credit the office supplies. So that will decrease that asset account right there. So for number 7, same thing as well. This one's a little bit different. So obviously you'll still put utilities expense in that first column, and then for debiting, you're going to take that the difference, so 1,327 minus 1,250, and what you get is $77. So obviously you're going to debit it, and then for this one, you will actually, instead of doing a utilities thing for an asset account or whatever you choose, it's actually going to be a utilities payable. So this one, I didn't find too much information on it, but I do know that expense, what I'm guessing is it's something that's kind of similar to maybe insurance expense or salaries expense, just because there is an ongoing transaction, or there possibly isn't, where, like in this case, the salaries expense, they didn't pay it originally, so it goes into the payable, but once they have that money, or once they decide to pay it, they'll take it out of their cash. So what it'll do is that utilities expense still needs to get recorded, but that utilities payable, once they do pay with cash, or however they do it, that decreases the payable, which then decreases both, kind of keeps the accounting equation equal. Because as of right now, that payable and that expense kind of cancel each other out essentially, but with that expense and then with that cash, it comes in. So hopefully this helps out a little bit. This is kind of how it's supposed to go for the answers and for the problem. Hopefully you guys were able to understand a little bit of what I was saying. If you guys have any questions, let me know, but look forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you.